Hello, this is Michel Leviathan Sorbet and you're watching a new episode on the Wojennik TV YouTube channel. Some time ago I have showed you the new edition of Victory World War II published by Columbia Games, and I mentioned during that unboxing that I would like to show you the expansions for this game. Now time has come. And today I would like to do an unboxing, or to rather show you those expansions. Those will be 4 boxed expansions with additional blocks and an additional map set which could be used to enhance your basic edition of Victory World War II. Victory World War II was published in 2019 by Columbia Games, and its designer is Tom Dalglish. The game is a reimplementation of an earlier title published back in 1998 under the title of Victory. So this is not a new game, but this is a reimplementation of this title, which in its basics is pretty much the same. Of course, it's of a much higher quality, and it is brought back to light thanks to the initiative of Columbia Games. The game, as well as its expansions, are supposed to provide equipment for 2 players to fight battles set in the world of World War II, but on fictional geomorphical maps. Now, you will be using units coming from World War II without the recreation of actual battles. So this is an interesting, pretty much abstract system which is set in World War II, but at the same time which is set on fictional and invented terrain feature. Those terrain features were showed in the basic game because I have showed you the maps which come in the basic edition, and those are maps which do not represent a real part of our globe. The same applies to this expansion because the additional terrain maps won't be depicting, for instance, Norway, Central Europe or the Isles of the Pacific. But there will be some similarities, and today I would like to show you those maps as well as the additional blocks which can be used to enhance your basic game. So let's now take a look at those expansions. Here are the expansions for Victory World War II that I would like to show you today. Now I have 4 additional block sets enclosed in those boxes. I have a German block set, an additional Soviet block set, an additional US block set, and also a green block set. So as you can see, 3 national armies and a colored army, which is the green additional block set, which can be added to the base edition. Now those block sets are meant to be used instead of those which are in the basic game, or alongside them, because it is absolutely possible to mix those blocks, because what you receive in those block sets is a little bit different from what you receive in the basic game. Now, besides, I also would like to show you the additional maps which were enclosed in the Dirty Dozen map pack, which includes 12 geomorphic strategic maps with different terrain. Now let's begin with those maps. So as you can see, 12 of them will be enclosed in here. Each of them will be having their own designation. For instance, 3B, which is an expansion for the 3rd map, but this is only designation which allows you to locate this map if you are playing an additional scenario which is using those maps. So this is also useful information when you create your own scenarios. You just write the number of the maps which should be used, and then when you would like to play this game, you just look at the number and you grab the correct map. Now those maps, as you can see, are of a size which allows you to mix them to construct bigger battlefields by placing one map next to the other. As you can see, a lot of things going on here. We have some towns, we have some roads, we have some mountains, forests, a lot of water, both in terms of rivers, lakes, and also some bays, some seas, some straits. So a really lot of water on those maps. And as you can see, those maps can be placed next to the other in different orientation. Thanks to this, the number of battlefields which are possible to be created with those tiles, with those maps, alongside with those enclosed in the basic edition, are truly enormous. It's just up to your imagination to create what you want to obtain. You can create bigger sea areas, you can create smaller sea areas, or you can just play battles on small islands. Why not? So as you can see, also those hexes have big size which will accommodate more blocks. That's a nice thing, because I have already seen block games using smaller hexes, smaller terrain. This one is well suited to accommodate a bigger number of blocks. I remember playing, for instance, Victory in Europe from Columbia Games. It didn't have any hexes on the map because it had terrain feature, and I remember that some of those spaces were much smaller than those hexes, and it was difficult to stack all the blocks in one place. Here, no such a problem at all. So as you can see, a great diversity of terrain. What I miss a little bit in this set is that you do not receive absolutely any map which would comprise only land. You have, as you can see, some maps which have a smaller quantity of water in terms of seas or lakes, but you do not receive any map which would entirely be composed of land. And although this is not a problem when you try to simulate, for instance, Pacific battles or battles fought in terrain such as Norway or Finland, I would find it difficult to recreate battles which would be set, for instance, in Eastern Europe on the Russian steppe. So not a big issue, because this game is set in World War II. It is not meant to recreate real battles fought in World War II. The terrain features are totally abstract, are totally different than those found on real Europe or Asia in general terms on our Mother Earth. But it would be a nice addition if some of those maps were totally comprised of land. It would also allow us to create bigger land terrain on which we could maneuver more blocks. Now the blocks. As you can see, I have already opened the German block set. Let's open another one, for instance the Soviet block set. On the front, on the box cover, you can very clearly see what kind of blocks are enclosed inside. Also an information that this is not a complete game, it's not a standalone edition. You do have to possess the Victory base game in order to play. It's good that this was underlined. On the back you can see what exactly kind of blocks you will find. So you will have additional air units, additional naval units, and additional army units. And what I really like in this block set is the fact that in terms of the naval units, you receive units which will have their own historical names. So for instance, here the Soviets receive the Sebastopol battleship, the Kirov cruiser, and also they receive a submarine. If you look at the blocks in the German set, you see that you will receive two battleships, the Bismarcks and the Tirpitz, my favorite World War II battleship, and also the aircraft carrier Graf Zeppelin, which is always a nice addition to every game. As you can see, the mix of those counters is different for every nation. For instance, the Germans have 4 more naval units than the Soviets. They have also more air units, but the Soviets have more army units. So this reflects in a way the strengths and weaknesses of each army fighting in World War II. Now, how those blocks look like? The blocks are pretty much the same as in most Columbia games. Products, high quality, wood, well shaped, without some problems when it comes to the dimensions or the regular shape of all of those blocks, and of course stickers which will be applied on those blocks. I love the artwork. It's both pretty as functional. We receive, as you can see, some cavalry units, we receive aircrafts, we receive the naval units mentioned earlier. Those blocks are of high quality, those stickers are of high quality, very pretty, and it will be very pleasant to play with them using those national armies. Additionally, you receive this box in which you can store those blocks, plenty of them, as you can see. The box with the basic game will not be big enough to store every additional expansion that you might have, so it's nice that you also receive this box which can be used to store those blocks. And this is pretty much everything that you can find in those expansions. I won't be opening the additional 2 boxes. Just take a quick look at the components of the American set. As you can see, air units, naval units, army units, pretty much equally divided, because you can find 15 air units, 15 naval units, and 20 army units. So again, this is somewhat a way to recreate or represent the strengths and weaknesses and the composition of the American army during World War II. Now, this is it when it comes to those expansions. Let's pass on to a short conclusion. Those were all the elements enclosed in the box set additions, in the block sets additions, and in the terrain maps addition. Now, those elements will surely enhance your basic game, because first of all, the additional blocks will enable you to play a specific nation which you would like to play in a World War II set game. Secondly, you receive really a lot of terrain maps. Now, I'm especially keen on taking those terrain maps to my games, because thanks to it I will be able to create really a huge amount of different battlefields. The sole problem which I have with this is, as I said a few moments ago, is the fact that we receive all maps that we receive are maps with some water parts. I would like to receive 1-2 maps which are composed entirely of land. That would enable me to recreate some battles fought in Central Europe, for instance. Not a big issue, but I would really like it. I would really enjoy it. So having said that, I believe this is a fantastic addition for the base game. I can't wait to play my first games using those nation blocks on additional maps. I will be showing you those elements in a future review. Up until then, I hope you will revisit our channel, verify our other materials. We have also some unboxings and some reviews in English. Have a fantastic day and see you next time.